Izette and I make high quality press-on nails. Welcome to or welcome back to my YouTube channel. Today we are making a Capricorn set. I know I am literally uploading this the day before it turns Aquarius season, but that's why I am hustling, guys. It's coming out today. This is the fourth installment to my zodiac collection. I've done Libra, Scorpio, Sagittarius, and now Capricorn. I mean, I have done the Aquarius nails at this point in time when I'm recording this, but obviously Capricorn comes before Aquarius, and I'm uploading this one first. I specialize in like highly intricate designs, and especially for my astrology sets, every single little detail pretty much is related to the set and like the sign in some way. So as you can see, as always, I'm starting off with the base, and this nail here, I do two of them. So I'm doing this kind of marbling effect using cat eye, regular cream polishes, and glitters. And I kind of talked over it earlier, but I used cat eye as a base and I demagnetized it so that it just kind of turns into a jelly color. If you are low on jelly colors but you have colored cat eyes, that is an easy way to just turn it into a jelly color. So the reason I'm using these techniques for these nails is because I am trying to emulate a garnet, because that is the gemstone that is mainly linked to the sign. Now I do try and include gemstones as like sometimes bases, sometimes in other elements into my astrology sets. And I am aware that like it's not exactly one-to-one, because obviously astrology signs kind of span over like most of 1 month, but then like a little bit of another month. And they mainly, most of the times, the gemstones that I choose relate to the month. I do find it kind of hard. Like I do a lot of research making these sets, right? And sometimes I find like I don't know. I'm into astrology, but I don't know every single detail about every single sign. So I do have to do my research, and I do find that sometimes I find like alternating. No, what's the? I'm really struggling. What's like contradictory information. So I'll usually go with the thing that I see most associated with it. So like say I'm finding information that there's different gemstones linked to Capricorn, but I see it's mainly garnet, I'll go with garnet. Or because obviously the design part is very important, I will instead go with the one that I feel like fits the vibe of the set the most. Now, Capricorn is probably, it's definitely not simple, but it's probably the most like clean set out of the all of the astrology ones that I've done. You can see here I'm using blooming gel to do another kind of like marbling effect, but I still want to, it's the set across all of it is still extremely detailed, but I wanted to try and give it that clean vibe because that just fits Capricorn for me. And we're not even done with the backgrounds yet, so I am creating aura effects on several nails. This one's going to be kind of like a piece of paper in the background, so I was going with like whites and like kind of like browns and stuff. And then for these ones, it's I'm just doing different green auras, and I'm using eyeshadow for the aura effect. So to do that, you just use a matte top coat, and then you go in with the eyeshadow and blend it in, as you can see I'm doing here. And the final color of aura that I'm doing is this brown shade on top of the green. Green and brown was kind of like the starting point of this set for me. So I'll probably do a longer video on like, not longer, but like it, and my words are running away from me, but I'm not going to edit it out because that is how I speak. So I'll do a dedicated video to my design process. I think I'm already doing a short on it, which should be out soon. But basically I'll do my research, and then I'll start like planning it out. The planning part like does vary sometimes, but usually I will start with like a color scheme. And because Capricorn is an earth sign, I just really felt like green and brown was the vibe to go with. So that was my starting point with this set, and then I built it up from there. So now I'm starting to go in with some of the more detailed aspects to the set. So I'm doing these kind of like leafy, well, there is just different types of leaves, and I do this across a few nails. And again, this for me is kind of relating to the fact that it is an earth sign. So I'm going in with different shades of green, like in different layers, trying to do the layers relatively thin so it doesn't get too bulky. And I'm also making sure that the greens that I'm using are different to the background so that it does like stand out and pop. I tend to find for like the more detailed things, and also if you're trying to do like straight lines and things like that, a longer brush. So you can see the one that I'm using here is really thin, but also really long. I feel like it might be sound counterintuitive, but I do feel that the longer brush actually gives you more control. I say this in like every video, but the main thing that's going to give you that depth and detail is just tons of layers. But like I say, you want to keep it thin so that it doesn't get too bulky. But honestly, like I know sometimes people say less is more, but for me, I just find like the more layers, the more detailed, the more it looks like how I want it to look. Saying that, that is how I work. I am quite a perfectionist and detail oriented person. I've seen plenty of like nail artists out there that have more of a kind of like general, not general, but like I guess what I'm trying to get at is that they tend to use the technique in art that's more kind of like you don't have to put tons of detail, but then if you look at it from a distance, like it all kind of comes together. I sometimes kind of go that way, but most of the time I am just a very detailed oriented person, which is also partly why these sets take me so goddamn long. Another tip for like things like these flowers here, especially if they include white, but even if they don't, is putting down that white base so that the colors don't get muddy and like so that it's actually true to what you're trying to create. Because say I was putting on this yellow without putting that white base down, it would number one probably start to blend in with the background a lot more. And number two, like I say, it can really muddy, especially with the background that I have. It's like green and brown, but any color really, it's not going to show true if you don't put a white base down. And sometimes it you might not want it to show true. It just depends on what you're going for. But if you do want to be able to really show that detail, have that color true to life, I guess, you putting down that white base is really, really helpful. Especially for these flowers here, they have white in the petals, so it just makes even more sense. And if I'm not doing a good enough rendering, or you're not that familiar with flowers, these are pansies, which again, through my research, I saw was associated with Capricorn. And again, there's some kind of, I don't do the exact same nails, I do change it up, but there are like kind of themes in my astrology sets that I tend to do throughout them all. So I will include the flower associated with it. I will include the gemstone associated with it. And then I'll, in different kind of configurations, I'll include the constellation, I'll include the like written symbol, and I'll include the like not necessarily animal, but so here, actually, such good timing. I am doing the sea goat here, which is represents Capricorn. And circling back to what I was just talking about, I don't know why I just said that. I felt like I work in an office. Circling back to what we were just talking about. But anyway, literally circling back. This one I didn't do a white base, but you did see me go in with a light base. Again, this one I didn't do it white because I knew that I was going to be using a lot of browns and stuff, and I wanted to lean that way to start. But again, it gives that more blank canvas. Not exactly a blank canvas, but more of a blank canvas. And I do feel a bit like a broken record because I feel like I keep repeating myself. But honestly, a lot of the things that I talk about are like the same concept. So again, with the Seago, with the detail and depth and all of that, I'm going in with a lot of layers and I'm just building it up until I am happy with it. I'm kind of with this going in with darker and darker browns. I started like light to dark, but you don't always have to work light to dark. But typically, obviously, it can be hard for the lighter colors to go over the darker colors, so it can be a bit of a rule that can be helpful. Well, not rule, like a concept, I guess. And then I felt like it needed a little something extra, so I'm going in with this gold chrome gel. This is another thing that I talk about a lot, but honestly, I use it in nearly every single set I make. Well, if I'm not using gold, I won't. But if it includes like gold chrome in some capacity, I do isolated chrome. I feel like the gold chrome gel and I like doing actual isolated chrome, they each have their own like benefits and like what's the thing, like pros and cons, there we go. So I personally feel that the gold chrome gel is better for smaller surface areas, and the isolated chrome is better for wider surface areas. But again, this is not a rule, this is just a general thing. Even in this set, I do actually use the gold chrome gel later on for a bigger surface area, just because, again, they have a slightly different finish. So if I am using both, I do kind of try to balance the use of both across both hands, if that makes sense, so that everything is kind of cohesive. So we moved on a nail, but you can see that I'm still using the gold chrome, especially in this clip. I am doing the constellation nail right now, and I always start like I do the exact same process every time I do a constellation. I go in with cat eye, like just a silver cat eye, and I build up the little stars, and then I connect them with this gold chrome gel. Another thing to note about the gold chrome gel is that it is shiniest when it has time to settle. So if you have it, you might have noticed that in the pot it will be really shiny, and then you like mix it up and it's less shiny. To get it that shiny again, let it sit for a bit before you cure it, and you will probably notice quite a difference in it. Again, I talked over it a bit, but that last nail, I just did a gold chrome empty French. And again, that is just tying in with the kind of sleek, clean vibes that I get from Capricorn. But again, I like to make these sets very detailed. So I did it on top of the background of all the leaves and stuff so that it was, clean and, all of those things, but also got a bit extra oomph to it. I didn't want to do just like a blank French tip. It didn't feel like enough. This is me waiting. That was a clip that I included to make a point of that. It really does help, I promise. So then for this nail, I did the gold chrome outline. Like I just did an outline around the outside, again, leaning into those clean vibes. And then in the middle, I am doing the written symbol for Capricorn in the same gold chrome gel. Look how clean that is. You see what I mean? Then I'm going in with a second layer just to make sure that it is how I want it. I feel I usually do go in with 2 layers of this just to make sure that it's all opaque and shiny and pretty. But another note with these kind of gels, I usually put it in for the cure twice because I've heard that it can, not struggle to cure, but like I just like I want to make sure that it's properly cured, and even if I have to wait a bit longer, and even if it is a bit unnecessary, I'd rather be sure that it's cured properly than just try and do it as quick as possible. That's the thing with me. Like, one of my things at the moment is that I'm trying to get faster at doing sets, but I do not want to compromise the quality. You know what I mean? So while I am trying to get faster, there are certain things that I will not cut corners like at all. And even if it means that I am still spending what I feel like is way too long on the set especially compared to other people, I'm not gonna like not saying that other people are like compromising things, but this is just how I work. And that's the thing at the end of the day, right? Like I say about like comparing myself to other people, and we're getting into a bit more of a like philosophical thing here. But I really do think that we are all unique, and while someone else might be able to do things like faster in certain ways and not compromise quality, like the way that I work and my brain works, like I need to do things in certain ways to so that I feel sure that I'm doing everything up to the quality that I want to provide. So I guess like a little takeaway from that is I know people say this all the time, but like really, like comparison is the thief of joy. And I do think like I personally, when I notice myself like comparing, I try to nip that in the bud because no good comes of it really. And by the way, you did see me there touching the uncured 3D gel with my fingers. I am trying to mainly do it with my nails, so I'm not touching uncured gel. Uh, if you don't already know, do not touch uncured gel as a general rule because it can lead to contact dermatitis and stuff like that. Generally, don't. But I'm not gonna lie, this was doing my head in and it wasn't sticking to the nail, and then it was sticking to my gloves and I just lost my mind. So I did touch it, but do as I say, not as I do. But speaking of those 3D bangles that I was just doing, you saw me do the isolated chrome that I talked about earlier, but I also just wanted to note that number one, they look cool. Number two, I felt like it felt like fit the clean vibe. Number three, most importantly, those bangles I felt like was a really cool way to link to Saturn, because Saturn has all the rings and Saturn rules Capricorn. So that's a bit more of a subtle way to bring that in. And then here we're going in with more of that 3D gel. This is, so there's different types of 3D gel. There's the more kind of liquidy type, and this is the more kind of putty type. Again, they are good for different things. For this one, I am creating, again, let me touch with it. It was driving me insane. It was not touching it. I know the risks. I it was a calculated risk, okay. But what I'm doing here is creating this little pocket watch, because so Capricorn, the general kind of idea of it is like, hardworking. That's the thing that I hear the most, like hardworking and all of that. But for some reason, I can't tell you why, but it just gives me pocket watch vibes, like the vibe of Capricorn, like, the put together, sleek, hardworking earth sign. Oh, it just really gives me pocket watch, and I thought, wouldn't it be so cool to do a 3D one that's really detailed with like Roman numerals around the side. So that's exactly what I did. And for the chain, I've seen other people did this, but I just did the like teeny tiny balls of the 3D gel, and then I used the end of my cuticle thing and just created the like little holes in between, and I really, really like how it turned out. Also, when you are doing isolated chrome things like this, I will always go in with the top coat before I do more painting like this on top, because the chrome, I want the chrome to be sealed in. I don't want it to like mix with the colors that I'm putting on top of it. And this is also a great example of using a mix of the real chrome and the gold chrome gel, because I'm using the gold chrome gel to create the clock hands here, but then you saw I used actual chrome for the face of the clock. Like I said, again, there are exceptions to the rule, but generally I like to use the gel for smaller surface areas and then the chrome for bigger surface areas. Also, if you're experienced with doing nails and using gel, you will already know this, but for the people who are watching that aren't experienced, I also want to note that using, so for the isolated chrome or any chrome, you want to use a non-white, either top coat, or sometimes you can get a black gel that's no wipe, or the 3D gels themselves will be no wipe. And you'll want to cure them. It does depend between brands, but generally I find that if you cure it for 50 seconds, that the chrome will stick really well and create that mirror effect instead of going kind of grainy and glittery. But that's it for the design part. You can see I'm going in and doing the top coat here. And again, especially for 3D nails and stuff like this, I wanted to show that you are going to have to use different techniques to apply the top coat with like when there's a lot going on. So like I went around the clock with the brush on the last one because I'd already top coated the clock, and here I'm going around the rings, and then I'm going to go in with another one of those thin and long nail art brushes to make sure that I'm getting in between and on all of those bangles, so as you can see me doing here. Also, when there is a chance for the top coat to kind of like pool in places that I don't really want it to, like on this nail, I'll give it a quick flash cure before, just to lock things in for like 10-15 seconds, and then I'll give it like a full cure just to make sure that everything is exactly where I want it to be. Then, because these other nails are pretty straightforward, pretty smooth, I'll pop them onto the stands and just pop the top coat on like normal. And when I'm doing the final top coat, again, this might not be fully necessary, but I do tend to do 2 full cures, so 60 seconds and then 60 seconds again, just because it is the top coat, it's sealing everything in, and I just want to be 110% sure that everything is properly locked in. Some of these nails on this hand do have some texture and like little 3D elements, like one on the red nail and the stars that I make out of cat eye. I do a few layers, so they do kind of stick out, but it's not massively 3D, so you can just go with those ones like normal. That's the entire set completely finished. If you made it this far, thank you so much. If you enjoyed, please like, comment, subscribe, all of those things. Thank you so much. Bye.